All right, welcome back to Your Voice Masterclass. It's the webinar series. I'm Rob. Amy's also here. Kind of, quick background. I've been a speaker for, 11 years. I'm a fireman. I've been a veteran, and now we're teaching this class, giving you the truth. So, Amy, give them a little background on you.
So I've been in marketing for almost 20 years and just helping people develop their stories. So I know the impact that it can have. And now, after meeting Rob, realizing it can be outside of the world of marketing and into our own lives in so many different areas. And that's why we're excited to do these webinar series with you today.
Yeah, and this topic today is kind of trails on from the last one, and it's the benefits of developing your voice. Now, Amy, this is a huge one, isn't it?
there, I didn't realize how much I hid behind the world of marketing and all my other clients' voices. And by doing that, my confidence in myself was so low because I always talked about others. I was comfortable in that world. And when I realized the benefits, it is so crucial in my sales, in my own social media posts, to getting up and doing a speech myself. All of these different areas has been a huge benefit of creating my voice.
Right. And a lot of people who are on the last one may realize that they're like, hey, that's the same description as the last one. Yes, it is. Because it is so powerful to find your voice and to develop your voice are really the same thing. It's the same passion, the same purpose, the same understanding to be able to continue to move forward. And that's the next slide is talking about, well, why am I doing this, right?
Oh, and just all the different areas that we can do and put this into place, even like when we were looking at leadership training. How do you talk to your team and motivate them and stories for decades and for the entire human race? Stories have inspired us, right?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't we develop that?
Right. And there's so many different, a lot of times you may hear us talking about speakers, but when you think about speakers, I really want you to think and focus back on why am I doing this? Because you are a speaker, whether you're a teacher, whether you're in the boardroom, whether you're in front of a media, whether you're coaching, you are a speaker because you are empowering that voice, that message that you have to be able to move to the next stage of being that impact person, developing that other people through the message that you have. So let's move on to the next one of talking about developing your voice. Show the value you can receive from building your unique voice. I just read the slide. I know you're never supposed to do that, but I did that. um, I'll get punished later, but it truly is about value. When we look back at developing your voice and we talk about purpose, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more when we go into the strategy, but you have to understand what is the value of why you're doing this. Why are you developing your voice? Because when I first got on stage, I remember I wanted everybody to feel the power of what I was saying, and if I saw one person kind of not paying attention or falling asleep, I was devastated. And then slowly I realized that, the value of what I'm doing needs to be with me as well. And my stories, it's not going to resonate with everybody. That's not realistic. And so we have to understand that building our unique voice has to be the value for ourselves first, and then we're going to develop that value for other people. So
Yeah,
without further ado, let's get into the strategy, Amy.
of course. That's the fun part, right?
Oh,
It's the
by
strategy
far.
behind this.
By far. Yeah, and the strategy that we're going to go into right now is fear. I'm going to have Amy drive this because this is a huge one that she started to understand in her story to be able to actually start to tell the real story and not the story that other people were telling her to tell.
Or the story I believed others wanted to hear. That
Oh,
was
great one.
that was the other thing. I always just kept my stories really short because I was kind of taught that way. Like, don't talk too long, don't take the the spotlight, basically. And so I had a real fear of owning that space and really being comfortable being heard and seen at the same time because I was taught to pass it on to the other person. as quickly as possible. And so my stories were short, direct, and sometimes didn't always make sense because I was trying to rush through them, right?
Right.
And that's why I really, when I had to start thinking about what was the problem I was having, why couldn't I communicate correctly? And why wasn't I making the impact I wanted? And it was because I was not comfortable in my own story and sharing it.
Yeah, it's a huge thing because you'll have this worksheet. That's your freebie for today. The worksheet to work through. And I think when you look at the worksheet, it's a huge thing to start to understand the problem solution strategy. And the problem solution strategy really focuses when you're speaking. There's always problems that come around with impact moments or with stories that really are powerful to you. And you have to go, well, why is this a problem in my life? Or why was this a problem? Or why do I need to solve this problem? And then the next fact is the hardest one to understand is, am I willing to solve that problem? Or have I solved that problem? Because that is where you come into being able to impact others with your stories.
Yep.
So for me, I understand that with having PTSD, depression, anxiety, that the solution to that problem is a constant fluctuating endpoint. But when I look at it from a problem perspective, I went from being suicidal, alcoholic, to now where I'm at now. And so, like a lot of people have asked, like, can my stories change the impact or the solutions? And you're totally right, it can. And that is how the cycle goes, is like, here's the problem, and I'm willing to do the solution. Okay, so now what was my experiences from it? And from where did I get the strength to be able to go and do that? That's kind of like your stories that you have, Amy.
Yeah. And my continuing problem was I avoided it, right?
Yeah,
I
right.
just did not put myself in a situation where I had to be in that spot of fear. And
Yeah,
so by me avoiding it, kept that problem totally into existence.
yeah,
And so I had to start putting myself into experiences and areas where it made me uncomfortable
yeah.
so I could grow and get more comfortable with it. And so we want to really identify, like, what are you doing to allow yourself to stop or allowing this problem to continue?
Mhm. And that,
Because
I think this, yeah, I mean, to kind of go on your point, Amy, is like there's two parts to this worksheet, really. One is associates with your stories.
yes,
So, what we'd say is, hey, take a story. What was the problem that you believe you encountered? Why did you encounter it? And then go through it. Did you solve the problem? Did you kind of solve the problem? Did you just avoid it, like Amy said? Um, and then
yeah.
the other part of it is, why haven't you wanted to develop your voice to this point? Because that's a huge point too. And you can use this structure to be able to find that. What was stopping you from finding your true voice? Amy, I mean,
Yeah.
that's a huge part of what your story began.
And some of my greatest stories came up by me figuring out the why. Why do I do this? And some of those stories of like me figuring out, like, oh my gosh, I was 10 years old and I was on the farm and this is what happened. And oh my gosh, that is why. And now that's become a story that I bring in to explain me. Like, it's not to excuse it, it's not to like give it a blame. It was really for me to understand, like, this was a situation that happened over and over again, but this was one spot I remember. And that why became my story. It became my experience. And
Yeah,
then I got to, like Rob said, do I get to change it? Yeah, because now I am aware of it.
yeah,
And
that's
now I get to
huge.
take it on however I want. And what did I learn from it? Like those are the things we want to start looking at, because these experiences that we have and the why behind them is worth every effort of focus and attention that we put into it.
And I think, I'd be remiss to not include, but you don't see it on the slide here, but there is a bottom part of this, and it talks about reflect on what others experience that might help you. That may sound weird. It may sound like off the wall, but think about it from a perspective of, as you give this speech, as I am vulnerable in my speeches, and I think that's one of the biggest things that you have to be is vulnerable, humble. You have to be self-deprecating, because that will put you understand that, I'm not all my accolades. I'm all my accolades and my failures. And so this last part is like kind of identifying, like, if I tell this story and I tell about the solution, kind of what can I bring to myself from that? Because that empowers you. That is something that they will feel when you're speaking it. Because otherwise, if you tell stories that are super easy, that are super, like make believe funny, let's put it that way. I don't like to say that, but it's make believe funny. They're gonna feel it. They understand it. Audiences are really good at understanding and taking away what is real and what is made up.
Yep.
That's a huge one. So
Yep.
why don't we just jump to the action stuff? I was getting just
Yeah.
really excited about the strategy.
Yeah, exactly.
You couldn't tell, could you?
No, not at all. And I mean, we've been doing this for a while now. And as we even hear other people, we can start to hear what is driving them. And, and so your action steps here for you is, who do you think would relate best to these stories? Like Rob said, you need to relate them back. They're your stories, they're your unique voice, but how can the other person relate to it?
Yep. It's a huge one, because that brings us back to, all these things combine. And I think that's one thing that I want everybody to understand is all of these things that we talk about combine, and they go into a pattern and a sequence, and you can replicate them over and over and over. And sometimes you need help from us, from individuals like us. Even if it's not us that are coaching you and you're speaking, that's fine. Have somebody be able to help you to be able to craft this. That's what we're trying to get. We're trying to get you to have your voice. No matter if you're coming to our classes, you're just doing our webinars, you're going into our online academy, you're coming to the in-person, or you're having us coach you, or you're doing other things, whatever it is, find out who your stories are going to best relate to. And then the second one is, why would this demographic relate to you the best? And this is developing that ability to craft your story, to not have to continually adapt to other things that really don't align with who you are or what your stories are. But where's the biggest impact going to be? And that's a hard one, isn't it, Amy, to be able to say, well, I want to speak to everybody. My message is for everybody.
Exactly. Because, when you think about it, like as a male, as a female, it could be that simple. Is it, I want to talk to high schoolers because this is where my experience is. Like, where is it that relates? And it is hard because you're still discovering it for yourself in the beginning. And when I noticed, when my story started to adapt and my message started to come together, that's when I understood who the demographic was and who I wanted to talk to.
Right. Now, a lot of people fear, like, oh my God, if I pigeonhole myself, this is going to be bad. It's like, you know what? Here's the great thing is that if it doesn't work, what can you do? Oh my God, you can adapt it. You're not writing this in concrete. You can change it. That's the beauty of this. So, but the third one is this really relates to the other ones, doesn't it, Amy?
Mm-hmm.
In the fact that, who do you want to reach the most? This was something that you struggled with. I've struggled with in 11 years. Who do I want to reach the most? I want to reach everybody.
And that's great, but that doesn't help you focus your message, and it doesn't help you focus where you're going to present or how you're going to utilize these stories. Is it in your leadership? Where are you going to reach the most impact? That's a great thing to kind of identify in the beginning. For me, it was entrepreneurs. Like, I've been an entrepreneur for 15 plus years now, and I know the struggle and I understand it. I work with my husband, Avery, and people are like, how do you do it? I'm like, I've been doing that for 15 years. Yeah. It's not always that, so yes, I want to reach entrepreneurs because I understand their struggles and stories. I can relate to them.
Yeah.
That's who's important to me. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody's important, but that's who I really can talk to. And I feel like I have the biggest impact too.
Yeah, and there's like I said before, there's no reason that you can't adapt as you go. There's no reason that, if you feel like you want to try to reach out and talk to everybody and go that route, it's very hard. It's a lot of legwork. But you can definitely do it. This is your journey. This is your path. We're trying to give you ideas as to how to make that path really refined to you. You're still going to have to get cuts and scrapes and fall down a few times, but we're trying to limit that with the things that we're giving you. The last part is this is so important. We keep coming back to this. And people are like, why do you keep coming back to this? Because it's important, and the question is exactly that. Why is that important for you to have your stories relate to these people? Why is it important for you to reach these people the most? You have to answer that question for yourself. Nobody else can answer that. You have to answer that question for yourself. And trust me, it is something that you may change daily. You may change a lot, but that's okay. That's okay. This is about you. This is your journey. And this is something that we need you to really bring back to yourself. So, kind of going on to the next part of the reason the strategy is important. Well, it's pretty simple, right? When you
Oh,
craft that speech, you have to have the passion and the confidence behind it to actually have it come through as genuine.
yes.
That's so critical.
And the thing too is like when you find that why, the reason's there. For me, I didn't want to feel silenced anymore. I wanted people to see me for who I was, and I was starting to get lost inside myself. And that was the solution to come to the surface and be me. And I would never give that up in any way. Where I've come, where I've gotten to, the mistakes I've made, it does not matter because what I'm doing is showing up as me.
What was
And
your
that
first podcast like, Amy?
my first one. Oh my gosh, I
The
was
fear.
that I'm surprised you couldn't hear the quiver in my voice. It was so bad. And that's the thing, but I put myself out there, right? And I didn't even know what I was doing. And eventually it became fun. And eventually I didn't need to do it anymore. I had done what its purpose was, and now I was ready to move on.
Yeah.
And that's the thing too, is like these podcasts, these stories, I get to now implement them differently. And that's why these reasons are so important, why you're doing that. And then I think about that why before I do something uncomfortable. Like, why am I doing this? I'm like, this is why I'm doing it. It's for me, not for the audience. I mean, they're going to get a benefit. I know they are. I'm going to try to make them feel a variety of emotions by just being me.
Yeah, and you hit a powerful statement. I want everybody who listens to this to understand when you see your voice, right? Your voice is much more than just a speech. Your voice is much more than just one class session. Your voice is your confidence. It's your passion. It's who you are. It's the unique you. And that's what we're really wanting to come out. And Amy, you hit it on the head of it translates to a lot of different parts of your life. It translates to so much. And you start to understand the stories, whether they're good or bad. And trust me, I have bad stories. I have good stories. Whether they're good or bad, or they impacted you so strongly, they're all part of your life and they're part of your life story. And the reason to craft your voice, the reason to understand your voice and build your voice is so that you have that confidence, that self-worth to continue to move forward every single day and make that impact in lives. And I'm going to leave you on that because, man, this is what it's about, right, Amy?
It is. And that's why this whole process is a journey
Mm-hmm.
because you're going to be discovering things and looking at things hopefully with an open perspective and an open perspective of yourself. And this reason will keep you going throughout this whole webinar series.
Mm-hmm.
What is your why? What is
Yep.
stopping you? And so you can kind of work through those things when they show up and continue on this journey. And
So what
that's,
would we ask you? Oh, go
yeah,
ahead,
I was
Amy.
going to say the next thing we have, just to let you know, is the next time we're talking about our next monthly one is tell your story.
Woohoo!
Yay, right? Like the story part of things, like how do we craft it? Where do we get that information? What are the stories that we're going to tell others? And again, we're going to be doing like how to intro yourself, how to close, how to make a lasting impression. We're giving you one technique each webinar so that you can take steps every single month. And you can go to these webinars here, or you can go to Believe at Your Voice Masterclass. That email goes directly to me, and you can always ask me any kind of questions you have about our webinars.
And in addition to that, we have our great mastermind weekends, or master class, I should say, weekends. We have one scheduled already for Wisconsin, February 25th and 26th. It'll be at Granger Hall on the campus of the UW Madison. It's going to be a great event. We have one coming up in Minneapolis. That'll be in March. I think the biggest thing to understand, and this is me going on my soapbox again, is you have to have somebody help you along this journey. You have to have somebody help you to be able to push that envelope. And those weekends are going to be really deep dive, and we don't have a lot of seats because we want to make sure that we have the close touch to be able to help people to build those stories, to build out as much as we can in that weekend. Are you going to build your whole speech? No. But you're going to get a lot, and you're going to start along that path, and you're going to have more knowledge and take from what you learned in these webinars, and you can bring that into these weekends and really push yourself forward. Whether you're starting out, you're continuing, or you're just wanting to hone that sword and be the best that you can be, these are going to be great weekends for you. You can go to yourvoicemasterclass.com to really find out, register. And if you have any questions, like Amy said, again, please go to Believe, or send an email to believe@yourvoicemasterclass.com to find out more. Amy, there's one more thing that we offered, isn't there?
Yes, it's the one-on-one coaching, which we absolutely love. And that's how we met, is that one-on-one coaching. And knowing I'm a verbal processor. So the idea of me just sitting by myself trying to think of these stories was really, really hard for me. But once I started talking, they all came to the surface and I could write them all down. But also, there's also that belief of like that story doesn't matter. When you tell somebody that, they're like, wait a minute, tell me more. And then what happened before that? You have somebody guiding you through that process to really come to the meat of like what it is that somebody else could relate it to. So if you're just not seeing how the story can relate, that's what we're here to help you do.
Definitely. And please feel free to reach out, send an email. We appreciate you being on the webinar today. If you have any questions or about this webinar, please shoot us an email, or just come to the next one and enjoy. We appreciate your time, and we want you to understand that you need to be a voice and not an echo. And Amy, what's your parting venture?
You stole mine.
I know I did.
But yeah, being able to find your why gives you the courage and the confidence to show up every time as yourself. And that is worth every moment you put into this.
Love it. We'll see you guys next time.